As I told you, my name is Terry. I have been at RTI for 15 years now, a little bit more. And my experience has been mostly in this whole part about working with NGOs and CSOs on building alliances. And so what we're going to be talking about in this session is alliance building, fundraising, and sustainability. So let's get started. I'm going to share my screen. So you know, the handout and this presentation will be available to you. So you don't need to take notes. I will be sharing the handout in the chat section of our Zoom. So don't worry about taking notes, but please let me know if you have questions at any point. This is intended to be helpful to you. So please, at any point, just let me know and we can discuss. All right, so let's get started. What we're going to be talking about in this session is how we can increase CSO's capacity to be able to build alliances, fundraise, and at the end of the day, become a little bit more sustainable with support from public and private organizations and, of course, the community. So what we're going to start with is what the objective is. For some organizations, and I'm sure you've experienced this, sometimes you think, why would I bother? Why go to the work of having to reach agreements, of align strategies, of align priorities, when we could just, go ahead and do it, do our work? Well, the main objective is we want to extend our scope, we want to improve our quality sometimes, and we want to provide the added value. Because what we do when we create alliances is we create the best practices. We incorporate our best practices for whatever it is we're doing in our technical area, and that makes our intervention much stronger. So there's 5 elements, you can see them there, that we want to focus on when we're going to build an alliance. We should not build alliances just to do it. They need to have a greater goal. And these are 5 pillars that you can look at. Am I having more impact? Am I promoting or increasing my chances at sustainability? Am I adding value? Definitely. Is there innovation there, or am I integrating efforts? So think about those as we go through this. The most important thing, and step 1 in anything, is to plan. We need to know what the goal is, what the resources we need along the way, and how we're going to measure success. So first we plan. Then we define our criteria to select our potential partners. We think about, who do I want to partner with? Why is this partner valuable to my alliance? Is this person bringing something to the table that I don't have on my own? And finally, once we've gone through those processes for each of our ideas, we create a portfolio. And this portfolio is what we will share with our potential funders, with our donors, and with other like-minded organizations as our own. So we came up with a strategy. We ran a program in Central America for 10 years. And the goal of this program was to work with the private sector and to leverage private sector resources. So we went through a lot of trial and error and a lot of missteps and things we could have done better or differently or not at all. And we created a strategy on how a successful way to build alliances. And this is what I've tried to summarize here. So we found that because of donor requirements especially, and because we wanted to get the word out to as many people as possible, a good way to do it is to have an open call. So you either do an advertisement in newspapers, you use your websites, you use social media now, which is increasingly a resource, a go-to resources for development. And so the interested organizations will look at that and will say, we work in that. That is something that is attractive to me, or I think I have a role in this. And so they will reach out. Obviously, you need some sort of committee, group, whatever you want to call it, to evaluate the criteria and to evaluate the technical relevance. Because as I'm sure you know, when you have money and when you offer to provide money for something, all of a sudden all these experts pop up. And then when you look at their background or what they've done, they're nowhere to be found. So it's always important to validate the technical ability for this. Then you approach the partners. This is a second way to do it. You can approach a specific partner. Let's say you have a limited scope, Sorry, that's a helicopter. Wow, and that is some really good lightning. So let's say you have a limited scope, or you have very little resources, or you have a very specific objective, and you know that if you do an open call, this will cause problems because you're going to have too many proposals and they're going to be too broad in what they want to cover, and you won't be able to address them. So sometimes it's better to just go after that specific partner that has the expertise that you need or that you want to partner with. And so what this partner will bring to the table is, the corporate part of this alliance. And the third way to do it is just be part of an initiative that will exceed the capacity of one single organization. For example, you want to do something nationwide. I can give you the examples that we did here. In one country, we did a vaccination campaign that had to be countrywide. In another situation, we did hurricane relief for a devastating hurricane that hit the region. It's something that neither the public sector can address on its own, nor the private sector. So what we do is we become part of a greater thing where we contribute something and all the other partners are doing the same. How do we pick them? Because I'm sure they're available and they're far and wide. But first we think, is this technically relevant to what I need to accomplish? Can I measure the results? The easiest way to make an alliance fail is if we have no demonstrable results that we can report back on, and we don't know if we're going in the right direction. So can I measure them? Is it cost effective? Or is it going to cost me more than the benefit that we will receive? Is it financially viable? And is it sustainable? So those are some, they're not all, but these are some really good factors that you can use to evaluate whether you enter into any particular project. So we've got a plan. We have objectives. We've selected partners. We have an idea. We've validated them. Now, how do we fund it, right? So it may be that we have our own resources, but our own resources are insufficient. So we're going to have to go after external resources that will support us and be able to complete our intervention. Here's a list of some of the possible sources. As you know, there's international organizations, foundations, companies that usually have a grants program that you can apply to. There's also clubs, service clubs. I was in Belize, well, it was a while ago now, because I was supporting the Rotary clubs for projects that they had there, and I remember it was a very active and strong organization in Belize. There's business chambers that you can go to, and they're really good points of access because you reach a larger number of potential partners in a shorter time. It's less of your effort, and you can reach more people. There's other NGOs, faith-based organizations, obviously, individual philanthropists. There's people that have funds and they want to put them to a greater good or to a social development project, and you would be an excellent implementer. So you need to map them out. I have put here a very basic example. It's an Excel spreadsheet that we started out with when we were trying to map all of these different options. It doesn't matter if you're using this or if you're using a system like Salesforce or another internet-based system where you can manage your database. What you use really doesn't matter. What matters is the quality of your information. So you need to have these basic fields for each organization. What they do, where they work, who your point of contact is, what are they interested in? Because these, especially if you go after large companies or large foundations, everyone goes after them. Every single person and their grandmother goes after these organizations. So if you don't target the ones that are interested in the things that you are interested in, it's just noise for them. So you need to be strategic. And the most important part of whatever form you use to keep this information is that it's updated, especially your contact. Because if you look at it 2 years later and then that person doesn't work there anymore, that organization doesn't exist anymore, then whatever you're doing here is useless. I can give you a tip. I update mine with my Christmas greeting, with my holiday greeting. If I send it out and I get the bounce back that that email no longer exists, then I try to find that person on LinkedIn or on another network, or I email a colleague and I update the information. Because if this becomes old, I would say more than 2 or 3 years old, it won't be useful to you any longer. How do we secure support? So we've got our map. We have our possible funding sources. We have a plan. We've probably prioritized them and decided who we're going to go after first. But then we have to actually approach them and actually secure whatever it is they're going to give us. So one is you do a request. You contact them directly. You write them a letter. You ask them for an appointment. You make a phone call. And you say, I have something that I would like to share with you because I believe we share this objective or this interest. You go, you present your idea, and you work from there. The other way is to do a fundraising event. With this, and I have a huge caveat here, be mindful of how much it will cost you, not only in money, not only in the money the check you have to write, but also in your effort, your human resources, the time invested, because sometimes to set up a fundraiser is really more work than what you're actually going to have in return. So we tend to see the number. Oh, we did a race and we raised $100,000 for this 5K. Yeah, but it cost us to do it $250. So it's really important that before you decide to embark on something like this, you make sure that you have the numbers and that the benefit will exceed the cost. Unless you're using it for purely promotional reasons. If you need to position a brand, or you need people to know that you're there, what you're working on, you just want people to know who you are, then this is fine. It becomes a PR event and it's useful to you, even if it costs you a lot of resources. But if you're doing it for fundraising reasons, you need to make sure that that relationship is going to be beneficial to you in the end. Later, the in-kind contributions. I'm going to share a tool with you on how to count them. We sometimes are not very good at counting them because they're not money we're dispersing out of an account. It's not a check, it's not cash, it's a resource that someone provided. These are also valuable. And the way you need to think about it is, if this was not being donated, how would I get it? So when you think about computers, office space, phones, a vehicle, anything that you didn't have to pay for but that someone provided is also part of an alliance and part of a contribution. An excellent one is to build alliances with the media. If you can have, and this is the example that I'm showing you here, we did this to collect school supplies. And we had, RCN is a very large radio consortium. It has like 15 or 16 radio stations. And we used them to send the message out that we needed school supplies for some particular schools for this project, Safe Passage. There's no way we could have reached as many people as the radio reached. And it was an easy ask because people could donate the school supplies in their local bank. So we also partnered with a bank, and you could go to the branch office that was closer to you and just leave them there. And so the amount of people that we were able to reach was much greater than if we had done this on our own. So having those alliances, they're very beneficial. You can also go to the sort of methodology that United Way has. So United Way, what they do is they fund it through voluntary payroll deductions. So you as an employee authorize that a deduction be taken from your payment every month. They pool it in a fund, and then they offer grants or they partner with organizations. You can also go after something like that. Or you can look for mentoring programs, trust funds, legacies that people might want to give your organization. So these are all different ideas of where those funds are. It does take a lot of work to find them, but here are some ideas for you to start. What made these successful? How did we measure? How did we report back to our donor? In our case, it was USAID. How did we report back whether something had been successful or not? Here are some ideas that I can share with you. One thing that made it successful is if our partner was motivated. If they were committed and they believed in what we were doing, we had a much greater chance of ensuring a long-term relationship and not just the one activity. It wasn't just the race. It wasn't just the school supplies in January. It wasn't just the scholarship. It was more of a relationship of how do we impact education, for example, or how do we strengthen the Ministry of Health, or how do we work with the National Civil Police and train them. So if they're motivated, you will have a greater chance of keeping them engaged for a longer time. Expectations need to be clear. If I don't understand what I'm getting out of this, and in my head, I have this idea, and then it turns out that it's not what you did, I will be disappointed. I will not want to partner with you again. You will be frustrated because you did what you had planned to do. So clearly define in writing, make sure everyone's on the same page. If you're going after a company or a foundation, make sure senior leadership wants to do this. Because sometimes you have a really good supporter and a really good partner at the mid-level, but if that doesn't reach where it has to, it probably won't last in the long term. Also, if you have the industries here, when we had to do, in Central America, when we had to do very large endeavors, we went after the largest industries in the region. You, of course, know what those are. It's banana, sugar, rum. Rum is hard because usually you can't pair education or health activities, especially with children, with alcohol. But sometimes they have other products or they're willing not to brand it. So look for the large industries that might be interested in partnering. And also look for those that want to move away from philanthropy and more towards development. If what they want to do is paint a school, they might not be a very good partner for you. Because what they want is to just get in, paint the school, get out. Be in the paper, put it on their annual report, we're done. What you're looking for is a long-term sustainable partner that is willing to invest the years it takes to create a difference in development. So that is not going to happen in a month, and it's not going to happen the one time. So that's really what you want to look at. Organizations that are transitioning towards actual development efforts and not just a philanthropic opportunity. This is a question, right? How do we make it sustainable? And it's a hard question because it doesn't have a straightforward answer. But some of the ways that we found are if we tie whatever we're doing to the country's priorities, we have a better chance of getting government or local government support. If we are demonstrating additionality, we did this and this is what we added. You were fine. You were doing a great job and you reached up to here. And when we stepped in, we were able to get here. That usually helps. Excellent communication, commitment from the local stakeholders. If you have engagement from the communities that you're working with or the stakeholder, your counterpart that you're working with, it's pretty guaranteed to be successful and sustainable. It can't be an imposition. We tried it with water filters. This is why you need a water filter. Everyone said yes. We went back 8 months later to supervise, and the filters were clothes hangers, cooking pots, whatever you want, except the filter. Because when you try to impose an idea, no matter how good it is, and you don't have the commitment, it won't work. And monitoring, definitely monitoring, reporting back, showing your stakeholders what you've achieved is paramount to your success and your sustainability, as well as cost effectiveness. If you do something that is so expensive that there's no way it can be maintained, once you step out, they will always be dependent on you. And that does not make for a good sustainable plan. So these are some of our pointers that I can share with you. And finally, we need to track it. No matter what you do, no matter how small you believe it is or how short in duration, you need to be able to report back on what you did and be accountable to everybody that worked with you, because then you strengthen that relationship for a long term. We found these instruments to be able to formalize it. We did memorandums of understanding, letters of intent, contracts, we did grants, whatever the partner was comfortable with. Some partners won't sign a contract. They don't want the liability. So a letter of intent was fine. I think that most of the work in alliances is based on goodwill, and it's based on, you are my trusted partner and I will do what I offered to do as long as you do what you promised to do. So you don't need a binding legal contract in some cases, right? It changes a little bit once you share money. So if you're going to open up a joint account where you're going to pool funds from both organizations, I strongly recommend a contract. But if you're just sharing resources and each organization spends in parallel and you're not mixing it, probably an MOU will be fine. So you need to discuss with your partner what they're comfortable with and then move forward. And when you pick an instrument, make sure that you include what the responsibilities are. And this goes back to defining expectations, clarifying expectations, what our objectives are, because we can't measure it if we don't know what we're doing and if it hasn't been clearly established. How long we're going to do it for, what are my deliverables? And this is really important. If there's a report involved, you need to point that out and say who is responsible for this and when. And then, of course, what we're going to do about marketing and communication. You protect your logo. Your logo is your brand. It's your name. It's your reputation. It's your face to the world. And so you need to make sure that everyone understands what we're allowed to do with it, how we're allowed to use it. And also when you have donors involved, that's very important, that you make sure that whatever you're doing communication-wise, they're okay with. And that's it for me. This is my email. I am available for questions, for follow-up, to share resources. But right now, I would really like to open it up to questions and comments from you, because we still have some time to be able to address some questions. So I am going to stop sharing my screen. And I am thankful that all of the electricity, we didn't lose it. And I'm going to go ahead and unmute you. Or wait, I think anyone can unmute themselves or not. I'm not sure. Can you unmute yourself?
Yes, we can.
Ah, excellent. Okay, well, that's easy then. So let's open it up for questions or comments, or if something was not clear and I can help you out. And I'm going to go ahead and share in the chat. But as soon as I can get this, here we go. I am going to share with you the handout. I know that this is going to go out in a like with all of the things that you already talked about, but I do want to share this particular one here with you, if I can figure out where to do that. So please, I welcome your comments or questions or feedback. So I have found that I can't share this with you here. Let me ask, while we wait for questions, let me ask Shane how we do that. So we have no questions or comments.
Hi there.
Hello, Roberto.
Hi there. Great presentation. I wondered if you could touch, because you started to talk about it. Belize is such a small community.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes as you say, we we run afoul with our donors because there's infighting within your group and they're engaging your funder and it sort of all falls apart. I wonder what would be the best approach to try and resolve these issues. Is it better to step away from that funder completely? Um, because your the conflict that you're having will continue because they are familiar with the individuals at the source of funding, and so it continues to aggravate the situation. Or do you try and reassure the funder that you're the better and sort of have the funder make a choice? I know it's a difficult scenario, but I wanted to get your thoughts on how, because it's a recurring theme
Oh,
for NGOs in Belize.
have you, well, I guess my first question is, how important is this funder to you? If you believe that this is a strategic partner and that this funder is very important for your success, I would keep trying.
Okay.
And I would say let's keep trying. Let's see if we can work out a situation where we're comfortable. The other thing I think you might be able to do is work with others. We have found in Central America that if you have a group of organizations approaching a large funder and they see that it's like a joint effort, sometimes we're more successful. What they don't like is the little projects that they have to have 10 of when they can maybe do one. The challenge there, of course, is that you need to reach an agreement with 9 other organizations, right? So yeah, but I would say if the funder is very important, you need to find a way to make this work. If the funder is giving you more trouble than it's actually benefiting your work, I would say it's fine to let it go. Always leave the door open, right? Always leave the door open, say thank you, we appreciate the work we've had. We'll leave it here for now.
Yeah,
Because in a
the details, but I'll share it here because we're a scout troop within the National Scout Association, and we actually where we partnered and we supported the formation of a new national sailing association. But that partnership has soured. We are. You're right. We were lucky that we are within the Scout Association of Belize that has a long history and a good track record in Belize. And that is our saving grace because we're constantly bombarded by misinformation and alternative facts. And it's really a slander campaign by what was a former partner, and it's trying to get the right information out and get accurate information to our funders. That's been a challenge because we don't know who they're sending out misinformation to. We occasionally a funder will say, you know, well, I've heard X, Y, and Z, and then we respond to it.
Yeah, that's a hard. It's a hard situation to be in, and since you are part of a larger group, it may be that whatever you decide to do can affect that larger group.
That as well. And
yes.
We're constantly in consultation with the leadership of we can call it the parent organization. And they have a heads up of any potential pitfalls that we're anticipating.
Oh, for sure. I would truly recommend that before you take any action, you do it in coordination with that head organization, because that way, because you're not only representing your own interests, but also the interest of a larger group. So that's going to be very, very important to you. Yeah, that is a challenging situation.
I'm sorry I dumped that on you.
No, that's fine. I actually, when we started, I wanted to know if we had more time, because my first idea was for you each to bring an example, but then I was told that I couldn't use all that time for this session.
Right.
But if anyone else has a specific situation that I can support you on, I'm happy to do it. I'm just going to do a time check. Let me do our time check here. Or questions on financing or the sustainability part that you think. We have 5 minutes left.
If no one will ask that, I wondered if you have any thoughts on what the outlook is with COVID, because locally COVID had a huge impact on us, and we're still trying to measure what impact it will have. Because we've just been given, in some cases, we've just been given the let's wait and see response when we approach potential sources of funding.
Uh-huh.
But we're trying to be um, proactive in knowing what maybe
Yes.
sectors will be affected, so forth. Do you have any outlook yourself?
Well, I strongly urge you to continue being proactive. We can't be in a holding pattern and we can't be in a wait and see because COVID is not going anywhere. COVID is here, it's staying, and until we have a vaccine and we all universally get our shot, we need to live in this environment. So I think you need to, first of all, you need to scope out what the situation is in Belize and where the greatest needs are going to be in terms of the populations that you work with. So, and then you can build on very good proposals. Some of the things we've been looking at now is, for example, we're working on protocols for small businesses. How do we help this small business be able to reopen and be able to work in a safe environment, protecting their employees and also protecting their customers so that slowly they can start reopening? We're doing this through the municipalities. So we're working with the mayors or the municipal authorities, and we're putting out protocols. They're not for large industries. They're not for large, huge companies. They're for the small community business that needs to start working again. So we're helping them with innovation. We're helping them with technology. We've created some tools to be able to train people through not Zoom, because Zoom takes up a lot of bandwidth, but maybe Facebook Live, maybe a small WhatsApp video that we can send some tips to, and that is working. So if you can find those like those little areas of opportunity that you will have a role, I would start preparing concepts and preparing things to present to potential donors.
Great ideas. Thanks, Derek.
And anything that you propose, don't propose it in the traditional format. We tend to go back to our safe and comfortable spaces, right? Propose it, sell it in a way that you show your donor that you are clearly aware that the working scenario has changed and you have a solution for that. You have a way to propose how to do this thing, knowing that our situation is not going to change anytime soon. Because that will show your donor that you've clearly thought this through and that you're able to carry it out, and that will support you in looking for funds.
Great point. Thanks again.
You're welcome. Thank you, Liz, for your comment here in the chat. Can you please raise your hand or give me a thumbs up if you were able to receive the files? I sent you the presentation and also the handout, which explains those points in greater detail.